Hello everybody, it's Gaz here from EnglishWithGaz.com. How are you doing today? Thank you very much for joining me again. This week I'd like to bring you a short grammar video. We're going to look at the difference between used to and would. So let's begin. To start off with, we have to know that both can be used to describe events that happened regularly, more than once, in the past, but not any longer. Let's look at a couple of examples. First one, I used to play football, but I hurt my knee and had to stop. True story. Second example, when I was younger, I would play football every week. I'd like you to think about these two sentences and ask yourself the question, do you think these two sentences are correct? The answer is yes, they're both absolutely correct. These are good examples of how you can use used to and how you can use would. So I'd like to share with you 4 points to note. The first point is that we use used to plus the infinitive form of the verb. As the example shows us here, we're using the infinitive of play, which is play. I used to play, I used to watch, I used to eat, I used to drink, I used to smoke, I used to run, whatever it is that you used to do regularly, more than once in the past, we use the infinitive form of the verb. The second point I'd like to share with you is that we have to establish a time frame before using would. So if we look at this example again, it says when I was younger. So this is our time frame. It tells us when we're talking about, followed by I would play football every week. If I were to change that around and flip it and say it the other way, I would play football every week when I was younger. It just doesn't sound quite right. So instead, we established a time frame before using would. Number 3. We do not use would plus state verbs. For example, I would love her. No, instead you would say, I used to love her. Now this isn't a video about state verbs. I'm going to make a separate video about state verbs at a later date. But just to remind you, state verbs are verbs which we cannot use in the continuous form. For example, love, understand, and feel. These are all examples of state verbs. And number 4 that I'd like to share with you is that when we are writing, would sounds better. Take these 2 examples. Before bed every night, I used to stargaze when I was younger. Or when I was younger, I used to stargaze before bed every night. Versus, when I was younger, I would stargaze before bed every night. Now, there's only a small difference and both are acceptable, of course. But when you're writing, you're trying to make the viewer, make the reader experience emotions. And for me, using would creates more emotion than using used to. That's not to say there's anything wrong with using used to. There isn't. Alright, so stay with me. Here comes the conclusion. So here's the conclusion. Well, before I give you the conclusion, which is written here, and it is quite simple, there are 2 common questions that students usually ask me at this point, and they are these 2 questions. Why do I have a choice? If they both mean the same thing, Gaz, then why do I have a choice? Well, that's because, listen to me telling you a story about my childhood and tell me how it sounds to you. When I was a child, I used to go on holiday to Bridlington every year. I used to play in the sea with my brother. I used to ride a donkey. We used to eat ice cream. We used to stay in the same hotel. I used to, he used to, she used to, we used to, blah, 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 blah. The listener has already fallen asleep listening to your boring story. So why do I have a choice? Simply because repetition is boring when you're telling a story, and by having the choice, it means that you can make your story sound a little more interesting. For example, when I was a child, we would go on holiday to Bridlington every year. My brother and I used to play in the sea. After we'd finished, we used to eat an ice cream. The story just sounds a little bit better. That's really why we have a choice. And also because, as we mentioned, we cannot use would with state verbs. So we need to have a choice because sometimes we need to say things using used to, talking about past repeated events that no longer are true, using state verbs like love. I used to love her is a great example. So we have to have two choices so that we can always express what we want to say. The second question that people usually ask me now is, if they both mean the same thing, how do I decide which to use? Great question. My simple answer would be, if you are not sure, use used to. You cannot really make a mistake with used to. You only have to remember to use the infinitive form of the verb, and it's as simple as that. But if you are planning on telling a lot of stories, you need to practice using used to and would to make sure that you don't sound boring like I just did. And that's really all there is to it. So don't worry about it. And what I'd love to see you do right now is to leave me a comment below using both used to and would, if you're feeling adventurous, to show me that you understand how to use both of these. And there we go. That brings us to the end of this video. If you did enjoy this video, I'd like to ask you to please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Check me out on Twitter, VK or Facebook by searching English with Gaz. And don't forget, I am of course an online English teacher offering you one-on-one lessons to teach you vocabulary and help you speak English with confidence. So for more information about that, please visit my website, which is englishwithgaz, all one word, englishwithgaz.com. Thank you for watching. Until next time, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you later.